Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, for joining us. Ja, tej poetry dzisiaj majdyszki initially building on a Bashtin, Kimachini Dashache, building on a national. Welcome back to Res Ball. This time we are talking about Alabama point guard, freshman point guard Labaron Philon, who has a lot of great playmaking potential, maybe some two-way potential as well, being on both sides of the ball, but definitely a passer. He's been comped to Rajon Rondo throughout the season. That's not going to be my comp, but we'll get into that here shortly. So let's get into Labaron Philon right about now. So Labaron Philon comes from Mobile, Alabama. That's where he grew up. Part of the reason why probably he ended up at University of Alabama. Attended Baker High School for most of his college or most of his high school career, excuse me, about 3 years. The one thing to notice in the profile before college at Baker High School in his junior season, Labaron Philon averaged 35 points per game as a junior there at Baker. Like, my goodness, don't worry, he won Mr. Alabama. Then goes over to Link Academy, 11.7 points per game, 4.3 assists per game at Link. And that continued in the Nike EYBL in the third circuit, where he averaged 12.6 points per game and 4 assists per game as well. So you see this background of like this, a mega scorer. So you thought coming into Link that he's just going to be like Cam Thomas or somebody like that. But no, he has playmaking chops, great instincts. Point guards are born, they are not made. I will continue to say that. I think both Fears and Labaron Philon are proof of that. Because even if in the background, like they might have shooting issues, or again, they look like this mega scorer, it's like, no, they know how to pass the rock because that's just their game and how they came up. And you have those instincts or you don't. So let's dive into Labaron Philon right now. At Alabama this past season, Labaron Philon scored 10.6 points per game, pulled in 3.3 rebounds, dished out 3.8 assists per game, 1.4 steals, 0.3 blocks per game, and then 1.7 turnovers per game. Labaron Philon shooting splits were 54.2% from 2-point range, 31.5% from 3-point range, and then 76.7% from the free throw line. All of this translates into a true shooting percentage of 54.9%. So it's pretty average right now. You would like that to be better. But again, this guy is a point guard, number one, a good setup man. You're not necessarily looking for him to be a primary scorer. That's going to be his profile first and foremost. 24.9 assists percentage to 15.2 turnover rate. Fantastic. Anytime you're 25-ish around there, that's like clear lead ball handler, clear lead playmaker. 20.9 assists or 20.9 usage percentage. My goodness, I can't talk today all of a sudden. So not a ton of usage either, but still able to generate a ton of assists there. Measurements for Labaron Philon: 6'2" and 3/4 inch without shoes, 174.6 pounds. And then Labaron Philon had a 6 feet, 6.25 inch wingspan. So 6'6" and a quarter wingspan. Pretty good, but still around the same size as what we said with Jeremiah Fears last time. A teeny bit taller, the tiniest, slimmest of margins. A little bit less in the weight, 174, but about an inch more in the wingspan with 6'6" and a quarter inch. So again, probably somebody who's like more of a one position defender, but at Alabama, you saw him man the point of attack defender. I mean, you see possessions against like a Jeremiah Fears, you see possessions against a Stephen Ashworth, you see possessions against Braden Smith, like these top point guards in NCAA basketball. They don't go so well all the time. I will give you that. But the fact that a freshman came in this role, continued to fight. And one thing you will hear me say about Labaron Philon, this guy never gave up on a play, whether it was on offense or defense. Even with the struggles that I'm going to bring him on defense, remember, this is somebody who never gave up on a possession and who continued to fight, even if he might have gotten screened to oblivion or something like that. Like, keep that in mind. 6'6" and quarter inch wingspan too. Maybe you can guard up a little bit to shooting guard, depending on the lineup. Some teams like to run small. Like if you're against the Cleveland Cavaliers, it becomes more of a strength of like, can you handle a Donovan Mitchell kind of thing? Or like the Bulls, Io and Kobe White, like that seems pretty good for a 6'6" and 1/4" guy to be able to handle both of those guys. And they're not, well, I mean, Io's pretty strong, but not like the strongest guys. So Labaron Philon's physical tools, pretty good. And if you go back to the defensive playmaking stuff, like 1.2 blocks per game, whatever. But I swear there are a lot of times where he was able to alter the shot of the guy he's guarding and really good at being able to get a hand in guys' face, no matter the situation, even if he's like the trailer. And then 2.9 steal percentage. It doesn't look like, yeah, it seems like it's less than, or not seems like it is less than just a little bit than Jeremiah Fears, but the steals, 50 total steals, 12 total blocks. That's not bad for a guard, especially one who you think is undersized. But man, the defensive playmaking really stands out to me. And instinctually, as a passer, and instinctually as somebody who gets steals, like you see both of those things in conjunction. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a guy you find out like is just lives in the film room. The way that he jumps passing lanes or the way that he gets into passing lanes is very different than what we brought up with Fears last time. Fears is more of a reactor, whereas Philon is like, I know positioning and I know what is going to come next. So many times with these 50 steals, he's just standing there while watching the play develop, and he's like, okay, here's the ball, I'm taking it. Or he's just waiting to jump because he knows where the ball's going next, and then he jumps and grabs it, and he's off to the races. Again, great instinctual defensive playmaker. Rarely do you ever see him get in a passing lane, go for a steal or something, and just implode the structure of the defense. He knows positioning. He understands switching and things like that. So as a defensive playmaker, you can't fault him for the way he makes plays on defense and gets to see his steals. Because again, it's within the structure. He studies and know what's going to happen next and anticipates that. And on the offensive side of thing too, like it's interesting to because I studied Fears and Philon like right next to each other. And a big difference between the two in terms of being a playmaker is like you can tell Philon's time with his teammates really helped out because he knew the guys and where they want to operate, where to get the ball, and things like that, where you don't necessarily need to look to know where to pass. Whereas Fears, again, it was more reactionary of like, okay, I think you're in a bit, I don't know, so I got to dribble around a little more and then set it out there. Or, oh, I know what I'm doing, but I got there, didn't work out. I don't know what everybody else is doing, so now I got to scramble and find out. Philon was more like, nope, take my time, or oh, I'm gonna attack in transition. I know where my trailers and all that are, so when I get there and there's contact, or when I get there, there's a wall. Like, oh, here's where I'm going to come out of it. Or like him and Grant Nelson pick and pop. It seemed like he did this thing where he, got the man and Grant's man to come off, did a little hesitation or did a little like stutter, and then boom, got it back out to Grant, and Grant's wide open. A lot of stuff with he and Mark Sears too, where Mark Sears magically is wide open because something LeBaron Philon did, whether it was off ball or whether it was on ball. So again, really a good guy that understands the scheme on both sides of the ball of like, okay, I know what we're running here. And if this doesn't work out, this is where I'm kicking the ball, or, oh, I know this is how the defense is going to react. So I know where my guys are going to be. And then on defense, it's like, okay, I've seen them do this a bunch. So I'm going to stand right here. And then the ball comes, I'm just going to grab it. Or like, okay, I'm going to wait right here. And when I know they're going to pass it, I'm going to jump into it and get it. So really good instincts on both sides of the ball. If any team that has the coaches like have a big say in who they draft, I'm sure they're going to love LeBaron Philon any film study that they do because of that. Shooting is a concern, sure, 35 or 31.5%. It looks bad, but take a look at this. In conference play, starting in the 14th game. So the first game that started in was January 4th. So basically starting in 2025, if you just track LeBaron Philon's shooting numbers starting in 2025, the year 2025 till the end of the season, which Alabama lost to Duke in the tournament in the round of 8. That's 24 games, so it's not a small sample size. And from three-point range, LeBaron Philon was 28 of 83 for 33.7%. The free throw percentage went up as well to 79.7%. And I think on tape that tracks. I think the main thing is LeBaron's a little bit awkward with his shot. It seems like he needs to bend at the abs and like what I call like load the spring, where instead of just going straight up with your shot, it's like you got to bend and then push up through your abs and your feet. to be able to get a little bit extra shot. So it takes a little bit of time to generate power for him. He is going to have some kind of mechanical work. Sometimes he does like the knees touching together when he's trying to get his feet set and winding up the shot in the lower body. But 33.7% is something you can absolutely work with. And on the film, you see him knock down shots from three that you need to. You see him be able to do it off the dribble a little bit. You see him to be able to do it from the catch. I just think the upper body seems to be fine. Like he does get a nice flick of the wrist and a rotation on the ball. The offhand can sometimes like come off a little bit too soon, but there's a solid foundation to work with where you're like, okay, just you got to keep your feet underneath you and then keep that offhand there. So there's at least something there. And again, the numbers as the year wore on, once 2025 came around, 33.7% from three, 79.7% from the free throw line. Those are solid numbers for probably somebody you're arguing as like a backup type point guard. Yeah, you can't like you just can't knock that, and you can buy into okay, going forward. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got from the shot chart here. Let me go back into simple zones real quick. If you notice here real quick, Ryan Edmart appears. This is what happens when you're knee deep in grading and student papers and not paying attention to the transfer portal and all that stuff. I had Jacoby Gillespie last time, but you know, in the time between recording Fears and Labaron Philon's episode, I'm like, I should probably check on that. And I did. And Jacoby's going to Tennessee. So kudos to Jacoby though, because going to Tennessee as a transfer, I mean, look at all the transfer stories, success stories they've had so far with Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier. So yes, absolutely excited for Jacoby. And I'm a big supporter. I still think he was a first round pick in this year's draft. Really good finisher for such a small guy, incredibly good shooter and fantastic setup point guard. So keep an eye on Jacoby Gillespie, and I'll be arguing for him next year anyway. And at Tennessee, you know he's going to be good. Back to Labaron Philon though. Here we got the simple zones, and from 3-point range, 31.3% from the above the break threes, 30 of 96, and then from the corners, 9 of 28. So at first you're like, I don't know so much about this, Steve, right? I'm sure you're not rocking with me on that end. Doesn't really have a mid-range game. That might be a concern for some people who want their point guard to always have a mid-range game, but I don't think LeBaron's going to come in instantly and be like a starter. I think for a long time he's going to be a backup. So to me, it's less of a thing. Like how many backup point guards are you like, oh, just rely on their mid-range game and they'll get us through it. It's like, no, man, come on. Most backups nowadays in the NBA like shoot a ton of threes, get a ton of assists, or they like attack the rack and get to the free throw line, kind of that stuff. So I do think LeBaron, it's not that big of a deal. The really good thing about Labaron Philon is he has a fantastic runner floater game. 45.9% in the paint, 28 of 61. I feel like that shot was money for him a lot of times. Just getting in there in the paint and being able to get that thing off with the longer arms. And it is one of those shots, I think, as a modern guard after the 3-point shot. That's probably the next one that, like, ooh, if you really want to make some noise in the league, like an Emmanuel Quickly, like a Tyrese Maxey, like if you can get that runner floater down, that just adds so much more to your game. And even somebody like Reggie Jackson, who isn't always, thought of as a top guy, but he played so long in the league and his shooting was off and on at times. Like that runner floater is really what helped him out a lot. Part of what got him minutes, being an instinctual point guard. And, just letting the rest of the game round out as you go along there. So yeah, I do think that runner floater for Labaron Philon, really good. 58.7% at the rim. He got there 121 times. This is the area where I'm like, I don't think there's really much excuse for it. You had like Darion Reed, you had Grant Nelson and Mark Sears, for crying out loud, two of the best players in college basketball. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I think part of it is just that LeBaron doesn't have the athleticism to get up and dunk. He has to be fully in transition to do it. This might be the when I was the 35 point per game scorer, like I probably was able to convert a bunch of these, but then being in the SEC now and seeing gigantic athletes who can move as well as I can, probably what it was. Again, there's nothing really to say. It's bad. It's a bad percentage. You wish it was better. In the NBA, this is something you shouldn't ask and rely upon him to do. So I'm obviously not going to make like the Dennis Schroeder type of thing last time with Fears, that kind of comp. Or I mean, for Fears, one thing I should have said is like I can definitely see the people that want to argue for like a De'Aaron Fox. I don't think Fears is that fast, but you could argue for something on that level, especially if you're going to argue for him in like the top four. Well, LeBaron Philon is like, no, he's quick. He is a pretty good ball handler, but he doesn't have the really good quickness and first step that a Jeremiah Fears does. He's getting more by on like knowing how to wiggle and shake free and be a little quick. But again, against SEC athletes, you can see he was fine, but he didn't separate consistently, and he had a hard time at the rim with the being able to finish there and being able to shake guys loose. I don't think he's really like unphysical either. This is the part of the profile I have a really hard time with because 90 free throws for LeBaron Philon this year, 28.7% free throw attempt rate. It's like he didn't really get there that much. He got to the rim a lot. I don't really know what the fix is in terms of at the rim, to be perfectly honest, because it's like you could see this is a guy that could get to the free throw line more. I hate this discussion because maybe this is a case of like you need to be coached on how to draw contact more. I mean, again, why did I bring this up? I hate it. I hate that. I never want a player to, you know, fake contact, fake stuff to get a call. I don't want to use the flap word because not everybody does that. There are people who know how to get more free throws just based off of how you drive. Like Kid Cunningham is a good example. He's definitely absolutely not a flopper, but just the difference in third year and fourth year of how he's driving to the rack and initiating contact. There's a difference between like 2.5 free throws a game to like four-ish, 4.5 free throws per game. I think LeBaron needs some kind of guidance on that as well too, of like, don't drive to the side of the rim. You need to drive a little bit more straightforward. But the main thing with LeBaron too is like he's so wound up all the time. He's definitely somebody that plays at 100%, which is probably to his detriment a little bit on offense. It is like I get to the rim, but I'm not quite ready for my shot, or like I don't quite have the touch to finish there all the time. And that shows up on defense too. Like I said, I understand there are people that make the Rajon Rondo comp and saying like he can be a two-way monster. I'm going to share a resource that says that. But one of the bigger concerns to me in film study is like he got screened to death. Watch the Purdue game, watch the Illinois game, watch the North Carolina game, particularly in that Purdue game. Like they knew we're just going to screen him all game. And that's what they did. They screened him time and time and time and time and time again. And he just played in trail position the rest of the time. Same thing with Illinois. Illinois is a little bit less than the Purdue game, but the Purdue game is just like, oh boy, yeah, this is going to be a problem. And again, kudos to the young man. He's not giving up on any play. He's still there with his man, or he knows how to handle the switch and go out there. He didn't give up on anything. Anytime he got screened and got stopped, he didn't die on the screen. That's the biggest thing here, especially for somebody that needs to work on that. It's more concerning when they die on all the screens. He's getting stifled, but he's not dying on them. He's still fighting through it. He's still getting around it. He's still playing in trail position, which again is not the ideal thing, but he's still getting in there. And there are so many times where he's still able to affect the shot, still able to get in there, or still able to handle the switch and do other things because he's still fighting through it and he's still playing nonstop there. So again, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there because on offense, some of that stuff gets him sped up and he kind of gets there before he's ready to do something. And then he doesn't quite have the touch of a natural finisher around the rim that other guys do. And then on defense, it is to his benefit because it's like, okay, I know I'm going to get screened, but I just got to keep at it. I'm going to keep fighting through these things and still make plays and understand how to jump in the passing lanes and do all these other things here. My comp for LeBaron Philon is Tyus Jones. I think he's probably a little bit ahead of schedule in terms of Tyus as a shooter, taller than Tyus, but I think the skill set ends up being kind of the same thing where it's like, this guy is clearly a point guard. He can score if he needs to be that. And the jump shot is going to take a little bit of time. But again, you don't see that it's bad. You see that It's still a work in progress. And the main thing that is going to get him on the court is exactly what happened with Tyus, where I believe he started in Minnesota or Memphis, one of the two. What got him on the court was being a point guard, setting up his other teammates. Shot wasn't quite there, and understanding defense. Even if he wasn't the biggest guy, even if he got overwhelmed at times, he continued to fight and he continued to play smart, instinctual basketball on both ends. And then when his shot came around, and then when he, got a little bit stronger and able to hold his ground a little more, guess what? He's like the best point guard in the league and can even start sometimes. So I think LeBaron can play faster than that. I mean, he played at Alabama, for crying out loud. He definitely attacks and transition more. And again, he's super sped up like that. But I still think in the NBA, like this is what you're drafting a Labaron Philon to be, super reliable backup that you buy into the playmaking and the instincts on both sides of the ball. Number one, you're going to be patient with a shot for it to come around because it did get better as the year went on, but takes a little bit of time. There's got to be some mechanical work comes in, but in 3 to 4 years time, you're going to be like, yeah, this guy's solid backup for us. And if he does get stronger and the shot can be like a legitimate threat, maybe you end up being into like starter territory. But I still think LeBaron Philon is more like Tyus, where you look to him for these instincts and you're like, I'm going to buy into him being a really, really good backup for us for a very long time. The YouTube and video resources to share, Cash Iggy. I mean, I should just say Cash Iggy every time. He has so many games on LeBaron Philon. Again, go look at the Purdue game, go look at the Illinois game, go look at the North Carolina game to understand the screen part for sure. But I mean, look at every game to understand his instincts on defense of positioning and jumping passing lanes while not quote unquote gambling, but doing it within the structure of the defense. And then on the passing part of just knowing where his teammates are, manipulating defenses and getting guys open shots. I mean, you can just count every time how many open shots that he passes into, where he passes the guy and he's open, passes the guy and he's open. It's fantastic. So Cash Iggy, a lot of LeBaron Philon games. Ben Pfeiffer, draft Twitter legend, has a great video on LeBaron Philon as a two-way star in the making, as it's titled. So that's the one that I mentioned, gave a little brief mention to. So if you really want to understand what the argument is for, yes, he can be somebody who is a really good defender and gives you good two-way potential, go check out Ben Pfeiffer's video. LeBaron Philon is two-way star in the making. And then we got Zach Shoemaker. LeBaron Philon opens up on his NBA draft decision, Alabama career, committing to Alabama, all that stuff. Nice, great interview with LeBaron Philon if you want to get behind the guy, the kid, and understand who he is. And then last but not least, of course, we have our guys over at No Ceilings who had great season highlights and a couple of different resources on LeBaron Philon. So those are some areas. If you want to check out more of LeBaron Philon, go definitely to No Ceilings. Check out Zach Shoemaker's video and interview with LeBaron Philon. Ben Pfeiffer talking about him potentially being a two-way star. And then, of course, Cash Iggy arguing for, or not arguing for, but just giving you all the games of LeBaron Philon. So many good pieces of film here. So just to reiterate one last time, looking for a backup point guard, I think LeBaron Philon is a great idea and a great starting point. I was kind of, it's funny, after all the film study, I was like, why am I so down on this guy? So I definitely was down on him for most of the year. And then once the off season hit, I started watching more games. I think I started with looking at the conference stats, and I noticed his shot was better. And that's the thing with me too. I'm like, a lot of times people will argue for guards that just can't shoot from three. I'm like, man, it's so hard to do that in this NBA now. But then when I look at it, I'm like, okay, I think I have a bias. So I'm going to dive into the film, and then you just see understanding basketball on both sides of the ball, which is why I have LeBaron Philon at number 27 now. I mean, he could go up. He's somebody too that, like, if you want to say end of the lottery or anywhere from 15 to 30, I'm not going to say in your way, because that's normally the range to where you take a backup point guard like this, to where you want to find somebody that's super reliable and that sometimes turns into something else. There's a lot of good backups that turn into, starters, 15 to 30, 18, 19-year-old kid definitely want to buy into, and you just don't see too many guys with this kind of instincts. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll catch you next time. I'm going to